Hey, what's up, guys? So, last night I watched the fourth episode of The Last of Us, and these are my thoughts. So, I believe episode 4, up until this point in the series, is the shortest episode. I could be wrong. I know it's definitely shorter than episodes 1 and 3. And even though it is still 50 minutes, this episode flies by. And that's not a knock per se, but it's just because the storytelling and what goes on in the episode is so good that it just flies by. And this episode does end on a cliffhanger. You know, I just love this episode. Like, the essence of The Last of Us is Joel and Ellie, and that's what we get in episode 4. Now, it doesn't focus on them the entire time because we finally get introduced to the hunters. And there's also 2 new characters coming from the hunters, and that's Kathleen, who is the leader of this group of hunters, and also this new character named Perry, who, if you guys recognize, is the guy that plays Tommy in the games. And that was very, very cool. I wish I didn't know that going into this episode, because I saw people post screenshots of him and saying, oh, he's going to be in episode 4. You know, so I kind of wish I didn't know that was coming, even though I knew he was in the show. And yeah, even though this Perry character wasn't in the show that much, he still gave off a really great performance. And this new leader of this hunter group, Kathleen, I thought she did a pretty decent job. She doesn't really sell me on the fact that she's like the leader of this group, because, you know, hunters are very, very bad people, and you can obviously tell she's a flawed character. Everyone in The Last of Us is flawed characters, but she does not seem the type that would be a good leader. And they actually talk about that in the spoiler podcast episode with Craig, Neil, and Troy. They pretty much say that there's a reason why, and they'll explore that in future episodes. And we know she's in episode 5, so we'll probably get like a backstory or something on why the way she is. You know, and also one thing that they tease in this episode is a sinkhole, which is, you know, I believe in like the first trailer, like the first full trailer we got for this show, they showed like a bloater and other infected coming out from the ground. And it's also been confirmed that the bloater is going to make its first appearance in episode 5, which, by the way, for those of you guys who don't know, because, I mean, this is very important, episode 5 of The Last of Us is going to be airing this Friday, not on Sunday, because of the Super Bowl. So we're getting it 2 days earlier. So I just want to put that out there for those of you who didn't know that and were like, oh, I can't wait until Sunday, you know, I'm going to watch the Super Bowl and then I'm going to watch The Last of Us. Like, no, we don't have to wait. We only have to wait until Friday. But going back to the episode, I just thought it was really well done. And this Kathleen character and the hunters are searching for Henry and Sam. Mainly Henry, because apparently he screwed them over. So they're giving more backstory into Henry and Sam, even though they only make an appearance literally at the very, like, the last 5 seconds. And that's how the episode ends, on a cliffhanger of them holding up Joel and Ellie at gunpoint. And so yeah, I'm very interested where they take that, even though, I mean, I've played the Last of Us game like 15 times. You know, I know the story like the back of my hand. But one thing that this show is doing so well is, you know, they're changing up things in the order that they happen in the games. And they're also deviating in ways that makes more sense than the game. So, I mean, even though we know the fate of Henry and Sam, what's going to happen up until that point? Are they going to change it drastically? Or, I mean, I have no idea. Main reason why I love this episode is because this is the episode where Joel and Ellie really start to bond. And the episode starts off with Ellie in a abandoned gas station, and she's, I believe, in the bathroom, and she has her pistol that she took from Bill and Frank's house, and she's just pointing it at the mirror, and she's smelling the gun. Like, she's obviously, she has, you know, she has infatuation with weapons because, you know, in a world like that, having a weapon gives you power because you can literally kill someone with it, you know. So she's very enamored with the thought of holding something that can give her power of life or death over someone else. You know, and then she walks out, and then Joel's siphoning gas from a car, and Ellie's wondering how that works, and he tries explaining it to her, but he actually has no idea. He just knows that it works, and that was a very funny moment. And one thing that was absolutely awesome that they did is they brought out the pun book, which is directly from the games. When you play the first game and you just stand there and you're just looking around, after a certain amount of time goes by, Ellie will pull out her pun book and start telling jokes to Joel. And it's absolutely hilarious and it's adorable. And they do that a couple times in the show. And it was just extremely well done. And then they start driving, you know, going to Wyoming. And then they pull off into the forest because it's starting to get late and they want to get sleep. And, you know, they're both laying down and Joel's trying to go to sleep, and Ellie tells him another joke from her book. But this time he actually gives her the punchline, like he knows the punchline to the joke. And she's like, "Oh, have you read this before?" And he's like, "No, go to sleep." And it's just a really endearing moment. Like I said earlier, that's the essence of The Last of Us, is the intimate moments between Joel and Ellie. And they are just sprinkled throughout this entire episode. You know, Ellie's asking Joel, like, you know, does anyone know that we're here? Or are people going to find us tonight? And Joel reassures her that no, we're safe. You know, and obviously Joel's lying. He just wants to put her mind at ease so she can go to sleep. And Joel ends up staying up the whole night pretty much on guard duty. You know, and then the next morning happens. Joel is actually brewing coffee. And Ellie gets up and smells it. And she's like, "Oh, what is this?" And Joel's like, "You don't like coffee?" And it's just a really awesome moment. And then they start driving, and we get that famous scene from the game of Ellie giving Joel an old music tape that he puts in. And then she looks at the gay magazine, and it is almost identical from the game. And it's just awesome. And then when she throws it out the window and she's like, "Bye-bye, dude." Like, it's almost one for one from the game. And it was just awesome. And then we get when they first encounter the hunters, and that's almost identical to the game as well. And Joel crashes into a building. This is where they switch it up a little bit, because, you know, in the game, Joel is separated from Ellie because he fell down into the basement, and then he's working his way up, and he climbs a ladder, and that's where the hunter kicks him and tries to drown him, and that's when Ellie shoots the guy and kills him. But this time, after they crash into the building, you know, Joel doesn't hear a guy coming from behind him, and Joel almost dies because Craig confirmed it in the spoiler cast that Joel would have died if Ellie wasn't there to save him, and she does. She shoots the guy in the spine and paralyzes him, and she feels really bad about it because she's not really, you know, she hasn't killed as many people as Joel has. She's a 14-year-old girl that's been pretty sheltered for the world that she's lived in so far. So she goes back behind the wall. Joel finishes the guy off with a knife, which was smart. And you can see Ellie's really shaken up by it. Like, she felt bad that he had to die, but she knew at the end of the day that he had to die. They couldn't risk it. You know, and then Joel goes around and they have to push something out of the way so he can go inside with her. And Joel can tell, like, she's upset by it, but Ellie doesn't want to talk about it, so she just moves along. And then eventually they get to a point where Fedra is now on the move looking for these random people because they think Henry and Sam have recruited these people, which is actually Joel and Ellie. So Joel and Ellie have to hide out in this building. And this is where one of my favorite scenes from the entire episode comes from, because they sit down And Ellie asks Joel if he's doing okay, which Joel didn't expect that at all. It kind of threw him off guard. And he's just like, I'm alright. But then he actually asks her if she's doing okay. And she's like, yeah. And Joel's just trying to explain, why he didn't hear that guy coming, and Ellie shouldn't have had to do what she did, because she's just a kid, and he tells her that he's sorry, and then Ellie starts to cry, and it's just a really beautiful moment, and then we get the scene where Joel gives the gun back to Ellie, and he teaches her how to hold it, and not to put it, don't put it in your back pocket so you don't shoot your ass off. And that was really funny. And right before they leave the room, Joel's like, we're going to get through this. And Ellie's like, I know. And it's just an absolutely beautiful moment between Joel and Ellie. And then they finally get into the building they were hoping to get for, because it's like 50 stories, and they want to see how they can get out of the city without, running into these hunters. And they get 30 floors in, and Joel's just really tired, so they just stop there. And they break into this room, and Joel is sprinkling glass all over the floor. That way, in case someone walks in, they would step on the glass and he would wake up and hear them. It's just like whenever they were laying down out in the woods. Joel asked Ellie, oh, whenever we were talking back there, when you said that it wasn't your first time, what did you mean by that? And Ellie's like, I don't want to talk about it. And Joel's like, okay. And he's trying to comfort her. And then it's revealed that, Joel is kind of deaf. He can't really hear from his right side. And I remember reading up on all the details for this show before even the first episode came out, and they were saying that, oh, in the show, one thing they're going to change is that Joel's actually somewhat deaf. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I wonder when they're going to show that, because up until this point, they haven't even mentioned that. And they finally do, and it makes sense because Joel always shoots from his right side. So he says, every time the gun goes off, it's a really loud noise, and that's pretty much why he can't hear too well from his right side. And before they go to sleep, Ellie tells one more joke, and Joel actually genuinely laughs, like he's laughing hard. This is probably the first time he's even smiled since Sarah died. And yeah, it's just, this really got to me. It was such a beautiful moment just seeing Joel and Ellie laugh. It was absolutely beautiful. And then the episode ends with Ellie waking up Joel, and there's Sam and Henry, and they're both holding them at gunpoint, and that's how the episode ends. And so yeah, it does end on a cliffhanger. And yeah, honestly, the only negatives I can think of from this episode is maybe the runtime. But at the same time, I mean, it's still almost an hour long. It just literally, it feels like 20 minutes. It just flies by because it's that good. And also, to me, the best part of this episode is those intimate moments with Joel and Ellie. And so yeah, I feel like I'm going to give this episode a 9.5 out of 10. And so yeah, what do you guys think down below? Let me know your thoughts on episode 4 of The Last of Us. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed it or found it informative, drop it a like, and hit the subscribe button by turning on the post notification bell so you don't miss my next upload. Until next time, guys, take care.